Extraordinary claims have been made that UFO investigators are being killed by so-called men in black have been made after the mysterious death of a 32-year-old newly married alien researcher. Gaurav Tiwari was found at his Dwarka flat in northwestern India under what has been reported as mysterious circumstances. It has led to new claims that as many as dozens of other UFO investigators have died in suspicious circumstances over the years. The Times of India reported that Mr. Tiwari's death was treated as suicide. But relatives say as a newlywed he had no reason to end his life and that he seemed normal in the run-up to his death. According to Father Uday Tiwari, he was drinking coffee with his wife when there was a loud thud from the bathroom. They found him unresponsive on the floor and he could not be revived. Police said a black line was found around his neck, leading to a conclusion of asphyxia. Another theory was he fell hitting his head and inflicting a fatal wound. An autopsy is due, with an inquest also being awaited. Mr. Tiwari Sr. did however, reveal that his son told his wife weeks before his death a negative force was pulling him towards it. The grieving dad said, "We don't believe in ghosts etc., but his death has left us shocked and puzzled." His son had founded the Indian Paranormal Society, and took part in regular TV shows. He also investigated thousands of haunted sites. Conspiracy theorists have already moved to connect the tragedy to a series of other deaths of UFO researchers, both explained and unexplained. Professor G. Kopselhorn has posted a list of allegedly suspicious deaths of UFO researchers at metatouch.org. He says more than 5 dozen UFO researchers, investigators, authors, alien contactees and military personnel have died of heart attacks, sudden onset of cancers, and supposed suicides. His list followed that of a special investigative piece on UFOs in Saga magazine in 1971 when author and comic legend Otto Binder chronicled the suspicious deaths of 137 UFO investigators in the previous 10 years. Opinions are split within ufology on the substance of these claims, with only hardcore conspiracy theorists believing secret men in black working for government agencies like the CIA are actually bumping people off. Nigel Watson, author of the UFO Investigations Manual, said these sorts of claims predated 1971. He said, "Deaths related to UFOs go right back to when Kenneth Arnold first saw a fleet of UFOs in June 1947 and brought about a worldwide wave of flying saucer sightings. A bizarre set of tragic circumstances surrounded the so-called Maury Island case. This involved the sighting of 6 donut-shaped UFOs by Harold Dahl, that dropped hot slag-like material onto his boat, burning his arm and killing his dog in the process. The next day his employer, Fred Lee Krisman, visited Maury Island where he found tons of debris and saw another UFO in the area. Kenneth Arnold was called in to investigate the sighting, and feeling out of his depth he invited 2 Air Force intelligence agents, Captain Davidson and Lieutenant Brown, to help him interview the witnesses. They weren't impressed with the validity of the sighting, but took away samples of the debris for analysis. As they were returning to their base at Hamilton Field, California, the port engine of their B-25 aircraft caught fire and they were killed when he crashed near Kelso, Washington state. An anonymous caller to the local newspaper named the victims before the crash was made public and claimed the aircraft was shot down by a 20mm cannon because it was carrying fragments of a flying saucer. 2 men and a dog had been killed, and Kenneth Arnold was nearly added to the list. When he took off from Tacoma, his engine failed and he had to make a crash landing. On checking his aircraft, he found that his fuel valve had been switched off. Paul Lance, a reporter for the Tacoma Times, who covered this story, died suddenly 2 weeks later of meningitis. Mr. Watson added, "Ufologists today now think this was an elaborate hoax that got out of hand, and could have been instigated by a U.S. intelligence agency to discredit Kenneth Arnold's original sighting." The story gets even more complicated when we consider that Fred Lee Krisman in October 1968 was subpoenaed to go before the grand jury in charge of investigating the assassination of John F. Kennedy. District Attorney Jim Garrison's inquiry thought he resembled one of the 3 tramps arrested near Dealey Plaza, Dallas, Texas, on the day of the assassination and believed he was a long-standing CIA employee. Furthermore, according to UFO conspiracy theory, the CIA killed President Kennedy because he wanted to share UFO secrets with the Soviet Union. In addition, Marilyn Monroe was allegedly murdered because she was speaking too freely about UFOs. The night before her death she had spoken to the TV celebrity columnist Dorothy Kilgallen about the Roswell saucer crash of 1947. Kilgallen subsequently died under mysterious circumstances on the 8th of November 1965. This shows how these various deaths can be woven together to support the idea that the truth about UFOs and alien visitations is being suppressed and discredited. Mr. Watson said many of these cases could be coincidences or people trying to make something out of nothing. He added, "There are certainly some strange incidents. For example, UFO researcher Philip Schneiders became increasingly fearful for his personal safety. Government vans followed him and several attempts were made to run his car off the road. Eventually, his worst fears were confirmed in January 1996. A friend broke into his apartment in Wilsonville, Oregon, where his dead body had been rotting for several days. At first, it was thought he had died from a stroke, and then an autopsy found that rubber tubing had been wrapped and knotted around his neck. The official verdict was suicide, but his former wife, Cynthia, and several friends could not accept this. He was found with his legs under his bed and his head resting on the seat of his wheelchair, an unusual position for a suicide, and there was blood nearby that did not seem to be Schneider's. His lecture material and UFO writings were missing from the apartment, yet valuables had gone untouched. But Mr. Watson is not convinced UFO researchers are repeatedly being bumped off. He added, "Government agencies could be at work, but it seems very extreme to murder people, especially over decades, when there are easier ways to discredit UFO researchers." Another theory is that mysterious men in black and the aliens themselves are behind these murders to eliminate anyone who gets too close to the truth about their operations. Thank you for hearing. Watch more videos at www.5la.net.